The time is exactly 9:38. News and views on Salam Media. And now we're crossing over, I think, to the Western Cape. We'll be talking with activist, lawyer, and writer Tasneem Fredericks. She is obviously in solidarity with the people of Palestine, and she's here to talk about it. But I'm very intrigued, Tasneem, when you say, Palestine, please forgive us. What is that all about?
Assalamu alaikum. And yeah, it's not the Western Cape. It's not the Republic of the Western Cape. It's Eastern Cape, Gqeberha.
Okay. We
Are
just
we not
assume.
on the map anymore? I feel
Do
erratic.
forgive me. Mhm.
No problem. Um, okay, so Jazakallah so much for having me, and greetings to the listeners. The issue with Palestine has been ongoing. Everybody knows this now, and it's so nice that it's more mainstream. That a lot of activists started, pre Operation Cost Lead in 2008. We've been having conversations basically with ourselves, talking to ourselves, 4 or 5 people, and now we have the situation, unfortunately, that has not been resolved, but we see more tension and more light being shone on the plight of Palestinians, on the endless occupation, on the apartheid that has been perfected and that is being practiced, for so long. So I think the forgiveness part is that it's so sad to me that this is about the fifth war on Gaza in particular, but on Palestine, the Palestinians are on a daily basis. I was in Palestine twice this year. They are being harassed on a daily basis. Their businesses are being closed on a daily basis. Children are being arrested on a daily basis. And I mean, the siege on Gaza itself has been ongoing for 16 years. And then every time something happens, we say the siege has been happening for 11 years, the siege has been happening for 12 years, the siege has been happening for, but and the Nakba has been ongoing, initially 60 years, then 61. And so we keep repeating the year after the year before or the last year that we said. And I find it unforgivable that we find ourselves, having these conversations and having conversations that possibly the descendants of the Nakba's children and grandchildren are still having. I mean, when does it stop? And when do we, as an ummah, as humanity, as human beings, when do we say, well, enough talk and now we need action?
Sadly, it seems to be falling on deaf ears. I mean, we've seen a groundswell of uprising by way of protests all around the world. Um, and the majority, of course, being brown and black people. But I guess in the Western world as well, lots of white people have come out as well. The white people who do understand what this is all about. The other sad reality is that, by and large, a lot of people, non-Muslims, um, seem not to understand what the conflict is all about. I'm shocked to the core when I hear people saying, yes, but Hamas started it, or yes, Israel is allowed to defend itself. And America comes to the aid of the Israelis by supplying all the weaponry, by having two military vessels, military aircraft carriers and ships in the waters just outside of Gaza. The UK, Rishi Sunak, that brown man, the garden boy, who's serving his white masters in the UK, lands into Israel at the beginning of the genocide with a plane load of armaments. And you kind of ask yourself, people, wake up. We're in the 21st century. What world or what zone are you living in that you don't understand what the conflict is all about? That you don't understand all the Palestinian people are asking is to get back their ancestral land and to be allowed to live in peace and harmony and not be imprisoned. They have been imprisoned for way too long. What is it with these white minds? And let me not generalize, it's not all white people, not all Jewish people, not all black people, but people who take the time and the trouble to understand the situation. But what is it with the rest of the world that refuse to see the situation for what it is? And that is what is killing me. I don't know how you view it, Tasneem.
Yeah, you've raised quite a number of points, very important points. So I'd like to respond to them as best I can. And I think the first thing for me to say is that we need to center um, the freedom of the Palestinians and the narratives of Palestinians on Palestinians. Let me also just state that we are not going to free Palestine. The only people that are going to free Palestine is Palestine. With the help of
Absolutely.
Allah, with the help of Allah, obviously, we make lots of dua for that. We won't stop making dua for that. But the only people who are going to save Palestine is Palestine. And if I can draw the analogy of South Africa, it was not white people who led the revolution in South Africa. And it was not outside. I mean, there are a number of issues like BDS, all kinds of boycotts, many other factors that brought us to where we were. When democracy entered South Africa and when we were liberated. And I mean, the liberation of South Africa liberated everyone. It liberated white people and black people. And we didn't say, as majority black South Africans, we didn't say, we now must have two South Africas. Can you imagine living in two South Africas? Please, somebody explain to me how we could have ever have imagined a two South African solution. Did anybody tell us we must have a two South African solution? The point you make on, non-Muslims not understanding Zionism, I think we need to actually speak to the Muslims. There are Muslim people who do not understand Zionism. And so I can openly and freely say that there are Muslim Zionists, because Zionism is not a religion. Zionism is not Judaism. Zionism is a political ideology, which means that if you are white, if you are black, if you are yellow, purple, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Christian, you can be a Zionist. So as much as we try to convert, no, you don't have to say, don't stand with Israel for it to be anti-Semitic. Israel has a powerful propaganda machine. They've got people that they pay to send out messages about and conditioning and whitewashing and pinkwashing and all kinds of washing the narrative of Israel as the chosen place for the chosen people. And we need to be very careful, as particularly as Muslims, that we don't fall into that trap where we don't think and just blindly repeat what we are told by people that we recognize as leaders, especially from a South African perspective. So I think for me at the moment, talking about that white privilege, talking about the few Jews, because they are the minority that choose for peace, friends, Jewish friends of Palestine. Obviously, I mean, everybody must be included in this conversation, but I think we very much need to know our place. And one of the questions that was posed to Dr. Mads Gilbert on Sunday was, as a white, and he refers to himself as a blonde, blue-eyed man. Why is it that we have him coming all the way to South Africa to speak on behalf of the Palestinians when you can't tell me that there isn't another Palestinian brown person who has been in Gaza that can come and tell the story? And I think, this goes back to the kind of apartheid conditioning that we have had in this country. And I suppose also how the world views people of color. So we've seen with Black Lives Matter that America themselves, I mean, their own citizens, they were killing Black people. So how in God's name do we think that they're not going to be racist to anyone that's not American? And so I think it's important that when you are the, blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy, that when you speak and you have an audience and people will listen more intensely and more deliberately and perhaps take what you say more seriously, then it becomes, great people like Dr. Mads Gilbert to stand up, especially amongst doctors, because I think that it's no surprise that medical practitioners are often taught to avoid being political and see these issues as separate. So I mean, many doctors will say, they don't want to get involved in the politics, but I think it's crucial to recognize that the issues are intrinsically connected, that you being a doctor also means that you need to stand up for the rights of people who are deeply impacted by the broader injustices within society. And I think the people of Gaza expect Dr. Mads to speak out. They've been messaging him. A lot of his stories on Sunday was so personal. I mean, he really touched on personal moments, and he actually went back to 2008, 2009, and he showed pictures, photos of Palestinians during the previous wars. And I mean, pictures where a young girl of 4 years old, I mean, there was a shrapnel in her back that paralyzed her. I mean, when there's anything in your back, then you know someone's shooting you as you're running away. So, I mean, this is the kind of brutality, the inhumane conduct that the Israeli occupation can actually perpetuate on Palestinians en masse. And I mean, he spoke about the ethnic cleansing. You know, he spoke about supporting armed resistance and supporting the notion that Hamas is not a terror organization and that the terror organization is actually occupation Israel. So I'm
Tasneem,
not sure.
I'm kind of wondering. There's still that narrative out there. Um, Very definitely in the West. Sad to say as well, here in South Africa, amongst some of our Black communities, Black as in African communities, despite the fact that we've all walked the journey of apartheid. So even young Black South Africans who were not subject to it, they have heard stories by their parents and their grandparents about apartheid, and yet they accept the narrative of the Zionists, that that was their promised land, and they just fighting for what belongs to them. Uh, and and by and large, the Jewish community in South Africa as well are very pro-Zionist and pro-Israel. And I just wonder, how do we as a community change that narrative? What is it that we do or say or should be doing and saying for people to get the picture? Because it seems like they don't get the picture, that they believe that was those blue-eyed, blonde-haired people were the chosen people of God, and that was their promised land.
Well, that's funny because I mean, Jesus was a Jew, and I mean, Jewish people are not blonde haired and blue eyed. They actually have coarsish brown hair, and they have olive skin and have brown eyes. So I mean, I don't know where that narrative comes in, but I think the issue for me, especially if you're doing solidarity work for a very very long time, and we won't stop because the world is, I mean, there was the Rohingya genocide. There's constantly attacks on various groupings of people. I think the thing is not to focus too much, and I think it leans back into what I said previously about centering the narrative of Palestinians, amplifying their voices. So we drown out because they are in the minority, and I think Israel, like I said, spends millions, billions of rands on PR. And I mean, now Palestinians are sending from their cheap phones when they do have Wi-Fi, they're sending videos showing us in real time what is happening. And with a zero budget, they are convincing the world. I mean, anyone with half a brain cell, unfortunately, can see what's happening. And if they don't want to see what's happening, I'm not sure what more we should be doing. If people are not wanting to think in the right direction, I'm not sure what more you must do. For me, I always say, I don't want to waste my time convincing racists not to be racist anymore. This conditioning happens at the dinner tables. It happens when they have the private braais. It happens in the little circles of friends and businesses that they keep. And so, I mean, unfortunately, being racist is not a criminal offense. And if it was, we'd probably see less racism, because every time you uttered or showed or displayed any act of racism, we could actually just phone the police. You could phone 10 111 and ask them to come and arrest your racist neighbor, that keeps harassing you. Only because you're darker than what they are, or because you don't look like they are. So I mean, for me, it's not convincing anyone, really. Everyone who has a heart and who has a mind that goes with that heart can see
Absolutely.
exactly what's happening. We are winning the war. I mean, it's definitely not hopeless in the sense that, and I mean, the Palestinians know that. Dr. Mads Gilbert spoke about sumud, steadfastness, and the resilience of the Palestinian people. And I mean, it's so amazing, because I have friends in Jericho whose businesses have been shut down, and they're talking about an economic genocide. So they're saying, while people in Gaza are losing their lives, they are losing their businesses. They're losing the ability to earn an income. And so we will see at the end of, because I mean, it must end. The ceasefire will come. Whether the siege will be lifted, we don't know. But things will be much tighter in occupied Palestine. It's not going to be business as usual. Netanyahu has made a deal with India, with Modi, to get 49,000 workers, and everybody that lives in occupied West Bank as work permit has been cancelled. So it means
Yes.
they're not going to have jobs, come, end of December or tomorrow or next week, when the situation when the ceasefire happens and they go in and rebuild what they kind of broke down.
Tasneem, we do need to wrap up. I've got my next guest on standby. I could talk to you here for the entire day. I've read that report as well, the deal between Modi and Netanyahu, and I'm kind of wondering, where does Netanyahu hope to house those Indian people, those Indian laborers that are going to replace the Palestinian people? And by the way, they brown too. So what sort of segregation is there going to be with those brown workers? Lots to unpack going forward. But let me give you the closing platform for now, if I can hand over to you. And I hope we can talk with you again in the future, inshallah.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say that this is going to be a long battle, and that we should really ensure that we are continuous in our efforts, that we have regular engagements, that we don't only so that we're not only reactive in the way we are approaching and embracing the Palestinian liberation. So Jazakallah so much for having me, and yeah, I do look forward to more engagements. I could also stay
Absolutely.
forever with you, so Jazakallah for
One
that.
final question, sharp, short answer, please, if you don't mind. Do you believe that all the protest actions, marches, etc., do you believe that that's making a difference? Is it making people to kind of realize something is amiss here? That globally we're seeing all of these marches happening?
Definitely, we can't stop. I mean, I just said that we need to keep going, and we need to keep going every day. If we are not speaking about Gaza every day, if we're not speaking about Palestine every day, because it's not, until liberation, then we are failing ourselves as Muslims and as human beings.
Tasneem Fredericks, what a pleasure talking with you. Activist, lawyer, and writer talking to us about Palestine. Please forgive us. Till the next time, I look forward to more lengthy discussions with you. Thank you. Go well. It is exactly 9:55. News and Views going to be wrapping up in a couple of minutes, but we still have one more person to talk with this morning, and that, of course, is you, Ali Komape, from the